From American Falls to Malad, we've got the biggest stories in District 5 covered. This is the Southeast Idaho Prepcast with Jordan Kaye.
That's right. Welcome into another edition of the Southeast Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash the beast. Brandon Baney with the beast. Jordan, I don't think that's probably a word that's ever been used to describe you, right?
No. I don't think ever.
Jordan Kaye from the Idaho State Journal in Pocatello joining us once again here on the Southeast Idaho Prepcast, your number one source for everything going on in District 5. You can get the audio of this podcast at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. You can also catch the video of this podcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. Jordan, what's going on? How you been?
Good. Just, gearing up for districts.
That's right. Your Arizona State Sun Devils looking very, very good. So obviously I'm a Montana Grizzly fan, right? You can see on my jacket, but for FBS football, I'm actually a UCLA fan. And so
really,
last week was no good.
They didn't look very good.
No, they didn't. Their bowl hopes, or at least their playoff hopes, I think were pretty much snuffed out by the Devils on Saturday. So
I'll take it.
for sure. So speaking of playoffs and postseason, we are into the district tournament time for soccer. It I don't know about you, it kind of snuck up on me. I thought it would get started later this week, but we actually had some start Monday and Tuesday. So
yeah, it's weird because you look at the football schedule so often that you're always in the mindset that it's mid-season, and then they're like postseason play starting. We're like, what? And very kind of crept up super quick.
Yep. So let's kind of see what's going on in District 5 for boys and girls soccer. Of course, there's the combined District 5 and 6 where Highland competes, but then there's also a standalone 4A and 3A competitions in District 5.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of local teams who have really good shots at going far in the state tournament, or heck, even possibly winning it. You look at Highland Soccer with Sage Rebell and Abby Satterfield. I mean, those are two of the best goal scorers in the state. Highland never has problems getting the ball in the net, and I think probably right now they've got to be the favorites, to win state, just with the senior laden team that they have, and the great forwards that they have. So I think that's one. Another one is Marsh Valley girls soccer, that I think they lost one game all season. I mean, they've just been fantastic, rolling through 3A. Almost everybody they play, it just seems like they can get 5-6 goals any day, and rarely allow more than one. So I think those right now in their respective classifications, Marsh Valley and Highland, I would say have really good chances to at least make the title game, or heck, even win it.
Yeah, Marsh Valley, of course, continues to look really strong. So at the 3A girls state tournament this year for soccer, District 5 gets just the conference champion, but the second place team will have a chance to advance to state via a play-in game. So whether that's American Falls or Snake River possibly, or whoever, they will have a chance. They're going to have to play a pretty good team from District 6, though, to get there. So on the boys' side, it's a little more, I would say, and not in terms of Highland and Marsh Valley stand out on the girls' level, not just locally, but on a statewide level.
Yes.
District or boys' side, it's really been more competitive this year.
Yeah, it has been. I think, you look at the 5A, and Highland has been kind of, up and down this season. They'll get a big win and then, suffer a loss. And it's kind of this, go up, then down. And it's not like the girls team that's just on an ascension all season long. Then you look at the boys, and it's really been, I think Preston has surprised a lot of people in that boys side. They were the number one seed going into the state tournament, which is, little bit surprising, just given they haven't had a huge track record. But Century, they lost a ton of seniors last year. Cam Murdoch, Evan Yost, just really big impact players who aren't there anymore. And then Pocatello, this is one of their better seasons in a long time. You talk to the coaches over there, and it's the boundaries and the way they've played out for this Pocatello team. They're starting to get more kids which means that their soccer team all of a sudden is a little more loaded. And all of a sudden, you go back Pocatello, 4 or 5 years ago, and you're getting kids out of there who have almost never played soccer before. It makes it really tough to win games. And now they're getting kids who are, not only have played soccer before, but are on club teams, are playing, 10, 12 months a year. And you're really starting to see it. And so they're going to be in that district tournament as the 2 seed. And, I think that the District 4 is pretty wide open in terms of who could come out of there. Then you look at, 3A, and American Falls has just been fantastic. And I know they made state last year. They'll also, Marsh Valley's hasn't been too bad. So I think it's kind of those 2 teams right there. But American Falls, a lot of seniors on that team. They had a tough loss at state last year where they had to go up to Post Falls, where like legitimately playing in snow that was like up to their ankles. And it was just like, and they only lost by a goal. And so that's a tough one to, draw much from. But yeah, American Falls on the boys side, I think is a really good team that can make a run in state.
Yeah, I think to your point with Pocatello, I think what hurt them was in league play, they had 2 ties, whereas Preston, instead of tying, actually got wins.
Yes.
And that's what allowed them to get that number 1 seed. I think Pokey is, at least to me, Pokey is probably the favorite still going into districts. But when we talk about, Jordan, we talk about these 3-team districts. Yeah. Anything can happen. All it takes is one bad match, and you're looking at the wrong side of the bracket.
That's the thing. Yeah, the 3-team. I mean, first of all, Preston not only gets a bye, but then can play every game at their home field, which is a little more impactful given that, both Century and Pocatello have to drive an hour south to a little bit colder weather. So you never know how those things are going to work. And that is kind of the bad part of a 3-team district.
And as we found out in so many sports last year, Jordan, only 1 bid available in 4A boys soccer from District 5. So it's going to be
ideal. Not ideal. No,
it's going to be a dogfight, not even a chance at a playing game or anything. So again, District 5 continuing to, at the 4A level, get the short end of the stick when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, so soccer is off and running. And a friendly reminder, at our site, IdahoSports.com, we will have the district brackets, not just for soccer, but for volleyball eventually and as well, but not just for District 5 either. We'll have all of the districts all over the state. So as we get to this time of year, this is where fans in District 5 will start to branch out and start to see, all right, who's looking good in other spots. And this is a great opportunity for you to follow along with all of the district bracket action. It's on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. We've got the girls soccer brackets up and running, and boys soccer brackets will be up soon. And it kind of snuck up on us, right? We missed the first day, but we do have those brackets up now, so everybody can check them out and follow along statewide. It's a really good resource to have on IdahoSports.com. So
yes, they're awesome.
All right, let's switch gears to football. Jordan, you were taking in some 1A action, little 8-man football for the first time this year. Tell us about the games you went to. Let's start with the one that was published. You published a nice recap in the Idaho State Journal's Saturday edition of Rockland against Grace. I was pretty surprised by this. Grace ends up winning 53-36 over Rockland.
Yeah, I was, I hadn't seen Rockland play much, but you can just look at their stats, and they're such an anomaly in this 1A level where most teams are running this, wing T, run heavy offense, playing only 8-man football. And Rockland is legitimately the heel, just being like, nope, we're just going to throw the ball 45 times a game. And so you can catch some of these 1A defenses and secondaries off guard. It helps too when you've got, 2 receivers who, could probably start on, most teams at much higher levels. Wes Matthews, who's this big, tall receiver, and then his brother Teague, who's a sophomore. He's a 6'4", just a monster. And Gavin Perman, that Rockland quarterback, just has to throw the ball up. I mean, he knows his receivers are going to go up and get it as long as they have a chance. So that was a really cool thing, seeing that Rockland offense. But then you look at Grace, and I was really, really impressed with what they were able to do. You look at their quarterback, Titan Anderson. He's this big, 6'3" kid, not a guy you often see, at a 1A level. He plays defensive back. He gets a pick, and then he's able to run this kind of interesting run offense with Jaden Pitcher, who's a smaller running back, and they just kind of work really well together. Just able to kind of catch defenses off guard. Hey, we've got this big guy, we've got this small guy. Let's see how we can do it. And then there's a other guy. They've got Dallin Draper, who's this big, like 6'3", 200-pound guy in the secondary. He had a pair of interceptions. I mean, for a 1A team, Grace has a couple athletes that are just monsters. And so that was kind of fun to see.
Yeah, if Grace is having success, chances are there's somebody with the last name Draper that's involved.
Yes, that is true.
For sure. So yeah, Grace, I kind of fell into the trap of just looking at their record and saying, oh, Rockland probably is favored in that game. But then when you look at Grace a little more closely, you notice that their 3 losses, they're now 2-3, came to North Gem, which is a really good 1A D2 team, but then also they've played Oakley and Raft River. I mean, those are the top 2 teams in the 1A D1 coaches poll. So, I think that Grace Butte County matchup in the regular season finale actually could be a lot closer than I previously had thought.
Exactly. And that's what's going to come down to who gets the state bid. I mean, no offense to Chalice, but they are struggling this season. So really, whoever comes out of that conference, it's only a 1-bid league. It's going to be whoever wins Grace versus Butte County. And so, yeah, that matchup definitely has a lot more intrigue after seeing Grace against Rockland.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about the other 8-man game you were at. You also took in North Gem against Chalice, and you talk about Rockland and how they love to spread it out. North Gem is pretty much the opposite, a 54-0 win over the Vikings.
First of all, there might not be a more fun place to go watch a game than North Gem. I mean, it's like a school of like 50 people. The cars like literally pull up 5 feet from the sideline. People are just like tailgating with drinks they made or food. They've got lawn chairs out. Heck, there's a horse that carries in the American flag. It's like the coolest place ever. And then the football team, it helps when they just score every single possession. The North Gem offense, I've seen it before, but man, is it fun to watch. They run like this flex bone offense, like this weird, maturation that only like a few colleges and like low levels ever even attempt. And they've got a quarterback, Bridger Hatch, a senior, and then a fullback, Brett Yost, who are just like, I mean, these two can run by anyone. I mean, Brett Yost is more of kind of a ground and pound bowling ball type running back. And Bridger, I mean, can just, bob and weave his way around the field and end up scoring touchdowns. And the offense is so crazy. So, I mean, a lot of people know like RPO, like, the quarterback, goes in for the handoff. He reads, a linebacker or defensive lineman and can either pull the ball or, give it to the running back. I mean, North Gem kind of runs that. They run more of like, option, I guess. But they do it so well that during one play of the game, the ref thought the wrong person had the ball. So he blows the whistle, like an inadvertent whistle, and Bridger Hatch is in the end zone with the ball. And the ref called the play down for a guy who got tackled who didn't have the ball, and Brett Yost. And like the coaches were livid. They're like, we have to talk to the ref before each game because, we have to tell him, hey, don't blow these whistles. Like, you don't know where the ball is. It's just crazy to see, like, when you can run an offense that good that the refs don't know who has the ball, that's when you're doing something right.
As a broadcaster, a team like North Gem is like my worst nightmare because you never know who has the ball, right?
I didn't attempt to keep stats because it's too fast, too complex. I was like, someone else will have them.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, it kind of sets up now where we get into 1A D1, D2 play late in the season.
Yeah.
North Gem has an interesting game this week. They're going to host Water Springs, the defending Rocky Mountain Conference champs, but they're a little bit down this year. This is a good opportunity for North Gem to send a strong message.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conference that I think has 2 bids. And I think, North Gem, one of their big goals this season was beat all the teams they lost to last season. One of those was Grace and the other was Water Springs. And so I think they realize that they've got a big test ahead of them to kind of avenge what happened last year and, be able to have a better spot in that playoffs and, heck, not make things come down to the Rockland game, I think is a big thing for North Gem. Don't have your entire playoff hopes on that Rockland game.
Yeah, so as I'm looking at the 1A D2 bracket, it looks like that 3 teams actually will get in from districts 5 and 6, the Rocky Mountain Conference this year. So, but as the conference champ, North Gym would have a lot easier
Yes.
time in terms of home games and things like that. So,
Yeah, you don't have to play, the prairies or those. Oh, I guess it wouldn't be them, would it? It would be
yeah. So I mean, just
Castleford or Horseshoe Bend in that first or second round.
yeah, I mean, just spitballing here, because we're into October now, so I think we can start to peek at the brackets and kind of start to speculate a little bit. So the champion of the Rocky Mountain Conference would get a home playoff game against the 4th place team from District 4, which will be like Murtaugh, or excuse me, like Hanson maybe, or Camas County. It's going to be a good matchup. The 2nd place team would get a home playoff game against the 3rd place team from District 3, which is going to be either Garden Valley or Council, which could be a tougher matchup. And then the 3rd place team from the Rocky Mountain Conference has to travel to the 2nd place team from District 4, which is going to be either Cary or Castleford. So
you don't want to play.
You want to stay out of that matchup. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a good resource.
Yes, so that's kind of how it's looking. So this is an important game for North Gem, because like you said, they trip up here, and now all of a sudden that Rockland game is like must win. All cards are down. So
exactly,
yeah, be a good matchup there. Rockland is going to host Mackey. We're gonna have to check on that. It's been a while since Mackey's played.
Yes,
and in fact, their volleyball team was on a roll. The top team in the conference, they had to forfeit a bunch of matches last week because they weren't able to play, which was unfortunate. So we'll double check on that one. But even if they're playing Rockland, we figure we'll have a good time. And then Grace is going to host Lighthouse Christian in a non-conference game. Lighthouse was a semifinalist a year ago, and they're 0-5 this year, Jordan, but they've played a really tough schedule.
That's the thing about Lighthouse is, like, I think I had them in the rankings, for a couple of weeks, because you look at their schedule and it was just, they were just playing teams that they, were so high in the rankings that they probably weren't going to beat even on like their best day. And so it was like, you can't fault them too much for those losses. But yeah, I think, Grace will have, kind of their hands full, but after seeing them last week, they have the athletes to pull it out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to the 2A ranks, where we got it started with Thursday night football on IdahoSports.com. I was in Dayton to watch the West Side Pirates defeat Soda Springs 55-8. Now the Cardinals were a little shorthanded. Starting quarterback Tug Cap was out with illness, and they were also missing 2 starters up front on the offensive line. I actually thought Soda Springs competed pretty well, and Trey Stevens made the move from wide receiver to quarterback to compete, and I thought he did pretty well. But West Side, of course, is so tough, and 6-0 overall, 2-0 in the league.
Yep.
Lather, rinse, repeat, right?
That's basically what it comes down to with them.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else we need to say about West Side at this point. They're pretty good. The other interesting game we had our eye on happened on Friday night.
Yes.
Aberdeen against Malad. These were 2 teams that were unbeaten in the conference. Malad had been kind of a feisty team under first-year coach Lucas Thorne, but I think Aberdeen showed pretty clearly that they are the second best team in the league with a 46-14 win.
Yeah, we saw Aberdeen that first week, and their rushing offense looked fantastic. They faltered a little the next 2 weeks, and I think they, I wasn't exactly expecting a blowout here, but, you look at like Brody Beck, he had, their quarterback had 130 yards, on 15 carries, a couple scores. Then Cale Adamson, they had it tight end for a little bit, a little bit at left tackle. He had, just 7 carries for 144 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's 20 yards a carry. You're not going to beat, you're not going to lose to many teams when your second rusher is getting 20 yards a carry.
Yeah, Aberdeen continues to roll. Big test for Aberdeen coming up this Friday, Jordan, on IdahoSports.com. They will travel to North Fremont. The Huskies are undefeated. They're ranked 3rd in both the media and coaches polls right now in 2A, a semifinal team from a year ago. Aberdeen, if they really want to be considered in that next league of teams, that next tier, they have to come out and play well against North Fremont.
Definitely, but I think right now Aberdeen's main focus is just getting second in the league, earning a spot in the state tournament. It really doesn't matter what they do in non-conference in order for them to, get that number 2 spot in state, and they're going to be playing the same team regardless of if they go undefeated in non-con or not. And so, I think that's one of those things where as much as you can look at this game and, think that they, if they win, they'll get moved up in the rankings and all this stuff. I mean, really, it's not that, it wouldn't be too detrimental if they lost this game, I should say. So
Sure.
It'll be an intriguing one to watch. We'll see how, Beck and Adamson do, as that 1-2 combo against a really good North Fremont team. But, if it doesn't go Aberdeen's way, it's not the end of the world.
Yep, for sure. West Side actually has a bye, and Jordan, that game on Thursday night was actually their senior night. They don't have any more home games in the regular season.
Holy cow. That's got to be like the earliest senior night of all time.
Right. Well, when I was a senior in high school, our coach decided to hold senior night on our first home game of the season. Kind of an interesting twist. Our first home game was our senior night because he said he wanted the community and the fans to know who the leaders of the team were. So that's why we had senior night the first game of the year.
That's kind of cool. I mean, they had to do it a lot last year because everyone was scared the seaend might get canceled at any time.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I guess you could do like, bookend it a little bit, do something at the end of the game too, or the last game. But yeah, that's not I like that explanation.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen like often, right? Usually it's the last home game, and that's what it was for Westside. So they have a bye this week, and then their last 2 conference games are on the road at Aberdeen and at Malad. So those will be important matchups. So Westside has the week off, and then here's another, Malad taking on Bear Lake. These are a pair of teams that Malad's 2-4, Bear Lake's 2-3. We talked about last year, all 5 teams got into the playoffs, 4 via the at-large. There's still an outside shot that one of these teams, Malad or Bear Lake, could grab an at-large spot with some good performances down the stretch here.
Especially because Malad has that win over Soda Springs, and so you've already kind of got one in your pocket. Bear Lake struggled against some good teams, which, isn't surprising. West Side beat them, Firth beat them, but those are 2 teams that, have just steamrolled their entire schedule. So yeah, I think this really sets up as whoever wins this has a shot at making the playoffs. And, once it gets to that, anything can happen. But, I've been really impressed with Malad lately, especially, like we've said, under, Coach Lucas Thorne in his first season there. And, Bear Lake's got a really good program with Ryan Messerly at the head. And, they have a pretty efficient passing attack, even after losing Owen Tusher last year. So yeah, that's going to be a fun one that'll kind of, and heck, those 2 teams haven't yet played Aberdeen. So, one of them, all it takes is, win over Aberdeen or something like that, and they're in the number 2 spot. So that's really all it comes down to. And so you can kind of keep your state hopes very much alive with a win on Friday.
Yep. A win keeps you in the mix. A loss certainly deals you a setback, though. So that's going to be an important must-win game for both of those teams.
Yep.
Soda Springs is hosting American Falls.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll transition into 3A football. American Falls, I think has a good opportunity to go on the right side of 500. They could be 4-3 if you think about it.
Because they've won their last 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And they had a bye last week. So they've got an entire week to prepare for, a 2A team who is coming off a tough loss. Yeah, this is a really good opportunity for Aberdeen to kind of put themselves back in the mix going into conference play. And the other thing too is, as we transition to 3A, Aberdeen or American Falls can get this 2A game while their conference foes are just beating up on each other, across the state. And so that's going to be a kind of a cool thing is American Falls can, they get a win. Like you're saying, already would have more wins than they did last season. And then you're going to go into conference play kind of with this, undefeated 0-0 record, and someone's going to have a loss, and you kind of just know who you need to beat right there.
Yeah. So American Falls lost their first 3 games. Since then, they have beaten Parma 23-18, Teton 14-13, and then last week they beat Wendell 41-14, which was really their first dominant performance of the year. Snake River beats Teton 46-21, but the most, the game we all had our eyes on was Marsh Valley against South Fremont. After being on the wrong end of so many close losses this year, Marsh Valley finds a way and knocks off South Fremont, a 3A semifinal team from a year ago, 21-20.
very interesting that the last 2 weeks, District 5 teams have beaten South Fremont. You had Snake River, giving them a tough defeat last year, and then Marsh Valley just barely pulls this one out. South Fremont, obviously has Cayman Peebles, who a lot of people think is one of the better quarterbacks in the entire state, and all South Fremont needed was a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to probably win it. And what happens is Peyton Howe, the Marsh Valley senior defensive back, picks off Peebles for the third time of the night on that 2-point conversion, preserving the win. And so this is a Marsh Valley team that's got a ton of athletes. They've got Hunter Roach at quarterback. They've got Michael Belknap at, running back at linebacker. And they got Howe at, wide receiver and DB. And they just show that their athleticism sometimes is all it takes to, defeat a team. And they go into this matchup with Marsh Valley or with Snake River kind of realizing this might decide who wins the district. And that's a lot of pressure, I guess, for one game, but it's perhaps some solace and knowing it just takes one.
Well, and you talked about it. This is the game, right? Snake River at Marsh Valley, 7:00 kickoff from Marsh Valley High School Friday night. The loser of this game still has a great chance to get to the playoffs via an at-large bid, but nothing is guaranteed, right? With a win here, you are setting yourselves up for a guaranteed spot in the playoffs, which is nice.
Yeah, because it's a play-in, right, for the second place team, or
so basically. Yeah, so what they do for 3A football is they take the 5 conference champions and they all receive a first round bye. Yeah. And then the other 8 teams, the at-large teams, end up playing a series of games. And it looks like this year District 5 is going to get 2 teams into the playoffs. So like I said, the loser of this game will get an at-large spot, but it's a lot tougher road to go. You have to play an extra game. You have to potentially play on the road.
And then you're possibly set up for a second round matchup against like Holmdale or Weiser or Gooding. And those are teams you just do not want to play early on.
Right. So yeah, this is an important game for sure. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch. 4A level, Pocatello defeats Burley 48-13. Burley's kind of a sneaky, feisty team. Burley's 3-3 now. Pocatello with a statement win, I thought, 48-13.
Yeah. Their offense was fantastic. I mean, you give a lot of credit to sophomore Drake Contreras at quarterback. He completed like almost 70% of his passes, threw for over 300 yards, had a couple touchdowns, and I think we're expecting Ryan Payne, that senior quarterback, to come back from an injury in the next week or two. So not sure how much Contreras will get, in terms of playing time going forward. But if you're a Pocatello fan, you've got to be very happy that for the next 2 years, you've got Drake Contreras at quarterback and then, him throwing the ball to Julian Bowie. I mean, that's a pretty lethal sophomore combo that you do not find very often at a level like 4A.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them over the years. The other big game that happened in District 5 at the 4A level, it was a game that we had on IdahoSports.com. Preston went up to Sugar Salem and lost 24-14. But, Sugar Salem, we talked about, they're still the 2-time defending 3A state champs. They're only 3-2, but they're still a really tough program. And so for Preston, 4-2, they're still doing just fine.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing after that big win against Blackfoot. You would, think that they would have momentum going into a game against a 3A team. But yeah, like you're saying, everyone expected Sugar Salem at the beginning of the season to repeat again. And they had a little bit of a down spiral early in the year, and it seems like they're starting to pick it up. I think they're back in the rankings now. They're looking good. And, for Preston, it's a real good learning opportunity heading into district play. It's not a loss that's going to kill you. All you need to do is beat Pocatello and beat Century, and you're in the state tournament. That's all it takes. That they know that's all it takes. And so I think, this is maybe a little bit of a wake-up call to be like, okay, that can't happen again. All our goals are still ahead of us. We've got to beat Century. We've got to beat Pocatello, and we're good.
Yep. So when it comes to the 4A state bracket this year, obviously the conference champ gets in, but also this year an automatic bid will go to either the second place team from District 5 or the second place team from District 1 and 2 up north.
And
So
that's going to be whoever has the better Max Preps rankings, correct?
Yes. And so at this point, you figure that Pocatello, right now is probably the favorite to win District 5.
Yeah.
But Preston, as the second place finisher, would be going up against more than likely Lakeland up north. That's a team that Preston A has already beaten this year, 7-6, and B is ahead of currently in the latest Max Prep ratings. Preston actually ranks 10th in the entire state for 4A football right now with a 14-point.
It's a tough schedule.
Yeah, and they've won, right?
Yeah.
They're 4-2. So.
Yeah, so what you're saying basically is if Preston finishes number 2, heck, if Preston or Pokey finishes number 2, they've got a really good shot to still make the playoffs.
Well, and even outside of that, there are still 4 at-large bids that are handed out as well. 16 teams make the playoffs for 4A. So I think at this point we can say Pokey's in and Preston is in, barring just an epic collapse. But
yes, gotcha. That's good news for them.
Yes, and more interestingly for Pocatello, right now they are second in the state in Max Preps ratings for 4A football. The only team they trail is Skyline, and that's a team that may not even win their conference because they lost to Blackfoot a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So you talk about they seed you 1 through 16 based on your Max Preps rating, and the top 5 seeds automatically go to the 5 conference winners. So if Skyline doesn't win their conference, you're talking about potentially Pocatello, if it stood as it is right now, being the number 1 overall seed for the 4A playoffs, getting home playoff games all the way through to a championship.
Wow. And that means they wouldn't have to play. No, they would still have to play week 1. They would just play the 16th ranked team. Is that correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. Yeah. That would be huge for them. And, that's part of the thing, like we're saying with this Max Prep thing, is it's not the worst thing in the world to, lose these good games. It's a reason that let me check where I put Pocatello. I had them 3rd in this week's rankings because I just don't feel like they should be penalized for their 2 losses being against a Highland team that's 4th in 5A and an Idaho Falls team that I put 5th. I'm like, they're not supposed to win those games. Those are against higher classification teams with more depth, more kids. They're not supposed to win those games, and they put up a fight in the Idaho Falls one. So I think some people are just looking at Pocatello's record and not necessarily who those losses came against, but it's cool to see that this Max Preps rewards them for losing to good teams, which is something that sometimes, outsiders or people looking at just schedules don't necessarily see or take into account.
Yeah. And Pocatello, as long as they continue to win, they should be able to hold on to a top spot because the strength of schedule early on was tough. Now, there are other teams like Emmett, Middleton, they'll play more difficult games in league play still on their schedule. But for Pocatello, they're doing just fine because they've got a big opportunity this week, Jordan. They travel to Shelley to play the Russets, who are 5-1. So either way, this is going to help Pocatello's Max Preps ratings. But Shelley lost last week to Hillcrest, which that was their first win of the year. I was really perplexed by that. I think Pocatello was set up for a nice win here against Shelley.
Was it Hillcrest or Bonneville?
Oh, you're right. Bonneville. Yes.
Bonneville.
Yes.
Wasn't that a Bonneville team that hadn't won a game? They were just getting blitzed by everyone. And then somehow Shelley comes out and, kind of just really underperformed. That was such a weird result. Yeah. I remember seeing that. I was like, what it almost seemed like a misprint. So, that's the perfect time for Pocatello to play this Shelley team. Maybe it's not. I don't know, how Shelley responds, but at least Pocatello's got some, if they can get the film of that game, be like, all right, whatever game plan Bonneville was doing, so let's see if we can just duplicate that one. It's a really, like you're saying, great matchup in terms of the Max Preps rankings. Also helps that, Shelley's still ranked in 4A. But, man, that Bonneville team kind of exposed its, a Shelley team that had been so surprising and, so overachieving this season. And, I don't know what it exactly says about Shelley. I suppose we'll find out this week. But, yeah, not one I was expecting.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I had to cough off camera, off mic there. Let's wrap up our talk with Highland, of course.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised. Thunder Ridge had really been struggling this year, and Highland wins 24-14. They'll take the win, but it was kind of a close game.
A lot closer than I thought. I thought it was pretty good performance from Thunder Ridge. I think someone was saying that there was an Ian Hershey kick that they said missed, but people thought it went in. Something like that. But yeah, it was it was a lot closer contest. And that's probably good for a Highland team that hasn't had many close contests in the last, 5 weeks. So that's not a bad thing. You got Jackson Schumann, who is a wide receiver, running back. He had caught 5 passes, almost 40 yards, touchdown, had a 53-yard kickoff return, and then we've talked about this Highland front seven a lot. We've highlighted Sloan Lamson and Cody Colvin and Drew Roberts, but linebacker, a junior, Mason Fulmer, who missed a lot of the summer and early fall workouts with an injury. All of a sudden on Friday against Thunder Ridge, he had 9 tackles and a pair for a loss. And that's a Highland defense that I don't think many teams can compete against. Obviously, we're going to see when it comes to Rigby, but the fact that they're doing this against 5A teams shows that they are that good.
Absolutely. And Highland finally has a bye week this week.
Yeah.
So they have the week off after playing 7 games so far, the most of any team in the state of Idaho. So we'll see how that goes. So you mentioned Rigby, Jordan. That's where I'm going to be Friday night for East Idaho game night on IdahoSports.com as they play Blackfoot. Should be a good 4A, 5A matchup. Where are you going to be at Friday?
I'm going to be at Snake River at Marsh Valley, just kind of the 3A game that we've been circling on our calendars all season long. And, I have yet to be at a Marsh Valley football game. So kind of excited to see their home setup. And that should be kind of a fun matchup to see who's in the pole position for 3A.
Wow, that's going to be a great game, and I'm looking forward to reading your recap of it in the Idaho State Journal. Of course, you can see all of Jordan's work online at IdahoStateJournal.com or the actual paper copy if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll go down to the library and pick up the hard copy that's in those newspaper stick things. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I still get them at the only time I see the newspaper is if I'm at a coffee shop and someone left one behind, and I'm like, oh, let me pick this up, give it a read.
Right.
I still like holding it.
Right. Yeah. You got something in your hands, right?
Yeah.
What else are you working on at the ISJ this week?
Yeah, I mean, starting to, going to try and get out to a couple district soccer matches, kind of monitoring volleyball a little bit. Then, Idaho State had a rough start to the season, 0-4. They've got a number 8 UC Davis coming in on Saturday. That'll be a tough one. I don't know if they'll be able to pull it out, but still keeping up with them.
They looked good against Sac State, at least I saw.
They did for one half.
Yeah.
And then things fell apart a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they have talent. There's a shot they can compete with UC Davis. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, all of Jordan's work can be seen online, IdahoStateJournal.com. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into the Southeast Idaho Prepcast, brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash the beast. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here next week on IdahoSports.com.